Programming on KFAI is brought to you by Hennepin County. We all need to think about our well-being. We need to be checking in on each other for support. Have you checked on your people lately? Our mental health is part of our total well-being. We are worthy of joy and self-care because when we see mental health, we see a community that cares. See mentalhealth.org.
You are listening to Fresh Air Community Radio, KFAI, 90.3 FM in Minneapolis and around the world at kfai.org, the community's true voice.
The viewpoints expressed in this program are the opinions of the people expressing them, and not necessarily those of Fresh Air Incorporated, its staff, or its board of directors.
The time now is 1 o'clock, and we join the call.
A conversation with Al McFarlane. I'm glad to be here and glad to have you along as well. Today is Tuesday, the 25th of July, 2023. And as always, we've got a great program for you. We're so glad to be part of the KFAI family. This organization provides invaluable work, ideas, connection to our community. And we believe that it's critical for our voices to be lifted here as well. So thanks to KFAI. I want to also begin by thanking you for listening here on KFAI, but also those of you who are joining us in the social media platforms. We're streaming this show live on two YouTube platforms. The one is YouTube Black Press USA. That's the channel by the Black Press of America National Newspaper Publishers Association. Insight is a very active member in the National Black Press, but we also stream on the Insight News YouTube channel. And in fact, what I want you to do is before this program is over or after the program is over, make a note, go to YouTube Insight News MN and subscribe. We want to build our subscription base to 1,000. We're at about half of that right now. And it takes you taking a minute, taking the time to subscribe, but also it takes you telling your friends, your neighbors, your networks that something important is happening over there at 1 o'clock. Join the program. In fact, we've got a text message that we're sharing with people. You can go to join our base, text TCWAM to 929-566-6470. And that way you'll get notifications about our upcoming live streams and our events. So text TCWAM to 929-566-6470. We also want to mention that, besides the YouTube platforms, we're streaming live to Twitter, streaming live to three Facebook profiles or platforms, and also to LinkedIn. So again, our mission is to connect, and all of this supported by the power of radio as well. We want to also remind you with our friends at the Minnesota Department of Health that the risk for COVID still exists. So let's continue to follow the COVID-19 protocols, wash your hands, stay aware, prioritize prevention. Together, we can create awareness, encourage testing, and help everyone stay healthy. So enjoy the show and get well and stay healthy. Well, got a big program today. A lot of people, good friends of mine, people that I adore, that I respect, and that I'm excited to be associated with, and I'm excited to share my conversations with them, with you. I have the biggest fun in saying that, I tell people, when you come on the show, it's me and you and 100,000 more people in a very intimate conversation. And so that's my goal, is to have a personal and private intimate, truthful conversation that you get the chance to listen to lean into, and gain insights. Well, you can also participate. And the way you participate is by going to, if you're on one of the online channels, the comment section. Leave a comment. Let us know where you're listening or watching or connecting from. And, give a hands up or thumbs down or thumbs up to the topic or to the ideas you're hearing expressed. Leave your comments. We want to engage you. That's what we call this robust conversation. Well, I want to begin with bringing on one of the great ones in our community. Signe Harriday is over at Pillsbury Theater, and they've got a new production called Out 2. It connects to Junada, I may be saying the name wrong, Patrice's children's book, Can We Please Give the Police Department to the Grandmothers? Signe, good afternoon. How you doing?
Oh, I'm so glad to be with you and be in a conversation with you. And yeah, please.
No, go ahead. You've got a friend as well that you want to bring on. Let's bring her in as well.
Yeah, with me today to talk about Inside Out, our second annual block party at Pillsbury House and Theater, is Amake Kubat, who's, you want to talk about who's a powerhouse in our community. This is an elder who is not only making art, but she is changing lives with her healing powers. She is a performing artist. She is a playwright. She is a performer. She is a healer. She is a world traveler. And she'll be with us at Inside Out, and excited to have her talk about the Grandmother's Circle Tree that she will be facilitating on Saturday here at Inside Out at Pillsbury House and Theater.
Awesome. Well, listen, tell me what the production that you're working on now. Tell me about that, first of all.
Yeah, I'll give you a real high level, and then if it's all right, I'll pass it to Elder Amake to talk about how she's going to be holding space. People may remember Pillsbury House and Theater is located in South Minneapolis, right at the intersection of 35th and Chicago, the heart of our community. And we have been here for more than 30 years, being in loving relationship with our community as a part of the ecosystem of artists that create pathways, much like the work that you do, Al, the work of KFAI. We also work with KRSM Radio as a part of our organization, really giving voice for the voiceless who have historically not been included in radio media. We have an incredible radio program for the last 5 years on KRSM. And together, we're hosting a block party. We're trying to create that space. We call it Inside Out, because so oftentimes in Minnesota, we get stuck on our one-way street and we're moving from here to there. We've got all of these incredible programs inside of our building. But during the pandemic, we remembered and learned really ancestral, and we're reminded of our ancestral technology of what it means as Black folks in particular to just be together. And in Minnesota, the summertime is the time to do that. And so we come together, and this is sort of our block party and celebration. We bring everything from inside out onto the street. There will be free food, fun family activities, a bouncy house. We will have roller skating, so you can roll on in with us. And I heard the voice of Kenna Cottman as the program started, who is one of the other hosts at KFAI and KRSM Radio. Kenna Cottman will be spinning vinyl and bringing us music throughout the event as well. And this is probably a good time to pass the microphone to Elder Amake to talk about what she's going to be facilitating at our block party.
Elder,
thank you, Signe.
Good afternoon.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you for having me here. I'm bringing the Iyagba's Circle Tree. Iyagba is a Yoruba word that means grandmothers. And I don't know anyone who doesn't love their grandmothers. I loved both of my grandmothers. They were from the South. They were indigenous African. They told me, they petted me up. And I want to bring that energy to our sitting circle, where we'll be sitting and we will be talking and we'll be imparting wisdom to whoever joins us at the circle as we make fans. I remember my grandmother's fanning in church, fanning at the tree, the lemonade, the Tupperware. And that was, I love them. And they would sit together and they would talk. And, you know, as a kid, you weren't able to interject and ask a lot of questions. But if you listen, you got some gems that maybe when grandma was washing some dishes or doing something, getting ready to lay down or rubbing her knees, you would ask her about that. And you get the 411 and the 911 and the 311. And that's elder wisdom. So hopefully the elders will come out, the grandmothers were coming out. We're going to combat the heat. We used to heat, we used to humidity, we used to sit under the trees, and we're going to watch and we're going to listen and we're going to learn as well. So come on out to the block parties, the Inside Out on Saturday from 1 to 5 at Pillsbury's house.
Tell me about your story. You mentioned your grandmothers. I'm curious about your own family. So take a minute and introduce us to your family and the lineage, the legacy that brings you forward. And while you do that, take a second to talk about that beautiful art that's over your shoulder there. And Signe, you've got great art there too. Let me ask you to talk about. Let's take a minute.
That is if my hands are high enough, they will eventually reach Olokun, which means if your hands are up high enough, you will eventually meet that spiritual world of wisdom and knowledge and abundance and all the good things that you are your birthright. You were born to have a good life, a long life with family and connections and laughter. And you were born with the tools of having whatever you needed to overcome the obstacles. So that's kind of, I'm going to keep reaching up and keep reaching up. My family's from Texas, both sides of Texas. I believe one of my grandmothers was from Oklahoma. My mother died, unfortunately, when I was 2. So I went back and forth between grandmothers. My father married several times. So mothering has always been a big thing for me. And grandmothering was kind of centered me of being a motherless daughter and a child and having to navigate changing of households. But it gave me a lot of rich time to have good imagination. And my grandmothers were the one that encouraged that, play in the dirt and climb the trees and eat the food out the ground. And, they had gardens. And that became like, those are a skill set that we were not privy. Everybody was not allowed to continue that or stay on the land or keep what they owned. So we stopped being food producers. We stopped being people that liked being out on porches. It's kind of a bad thing in the city to be country. So those things and when my work is having mothers, especially Black mothers of all ages, come together and talk about that. Where is our harvest our cultural lineages, that wisdom in there, those legacies, that know-how. We know we can make something out of nothing. We've been doing that for a long time. How can we make it into something that's sustainable? How do we continue to feed our communities? How do we address the things that keep coming at us? Because it's always been coming at us. They came and got us to come at us. So we're giving that wisdom to young people and passing down those skills where they're making a quilt also becomes marketable. Everybody in Minnesota needed several quilts this winter. How to make food that's tasty and nutritious. When we cooked out of cast iron pots and cooked all day and things simmered and we took our times, we were healthier. One of the stories I'll tell you is how your mama came that I was able to kind of concretely say, this is what I do is I woke up one morning, my daughter was screaming in the bathroom. So, okay, oh God, that's unusual. Go in there, hot water shooting everywhere. The faucet won't turn off. And so it's stripped. I live in a rented building. I couldn't find my landlord. A plumber would not come out, even though I had cash and credit cards. I needed the signature of the landlord. So I'm running up and down the street looking for tools. No one's at home because they're working. We don't have the tools. And I'm calling people like, come help, I can't leave the bathroom water scalding and running all day. We have jobs to go to, schools to go to. And all of a sudden I don't hear the water. I don't hear my daughter. And I go in there and she's taken a cast iron skillet and she's wedged it from the mirror to the faucet handles, which press them down to make the water stop. Wow. And in that moment, I got the realization that cast iron pot used to nourish a lot of people. Mm-hmm. And then that cast iron skillet was the peacemaker on Friday nights. Pow, pow, got people regulated. And then that cast iron skillet is now a plumber. So using my daughter, using her cultural heritage of knowing what that cast iron skillet could do, have some weight, have some strength, she solved that problem till we can get a plumber into the house. So I use that to say how mothers transcend just about everything with a little bit of knowledge that they got from someone else, from someone else, from someone else. And if you sit down long enough to listen to people and give them that space and give them the rapport of breathing together and our heart beating together and that hug and that touch, the stories come, that richness comes. So that's what I do. And hopefully we will replicate some of that. We'll bring in some of that ancestral energy. We'll call some of the descendants that not yet born to come and join us, and we will be making fans, and we'll be having a good time and partaking with what's happening around us. So again, join us on Saturday.
Everybody's going to be there. Those who are here right now, those who are coming, and those who have been here for a long, long time. That's
Absolutely.
a wonderful. And so Signe, I noticed in your credentials you say Dakota land, and before the show started, we talked about the relationship between our people and the land. I wanted to not pass up the opportunity to have you reflect on what it means to be conscious of our relationship to land and our relationship to the people who are stewards of land, and giving credit to the ones who so faithfully stewarded this land, but our relationship with them and with the land as well. What do you think, Signe?
Well, thank you very much for that prompt. That there's a whole lot in there, I think, and Elder Amake also really lifted this up, that the land has the ability to heal us if we want to be in right relationship with land. And part of that right relationship with land is understanding the relationship with land that has happened before the present moment that we are in, which is also what Amake was talking about in terms of the lessons learned, passed down person to person. And we all have a cultural legacy that we can tap into if we choose to do so. But I think that as the descendants of folks whose labor was stolen and being situated here in Minnesota on land that was stolen from Indigenous people here, I think we have an opportunity to think about and actually activate towards what does healing look like when we have that historical trauma embedded in who we are and embedded in our communities. And so I think as a member of Pillsbury House and Theater, who is here in South Minneapolis, who is literally taking up space, part of that is making a commitment to make space for Indigenous voices on our stages and in our programming. And also inviting people into a conversation around how colonialism has shaped the ways that we are in relationship to each other. And I think what we're really trying to do, and I think your show is trying to do this too, if we can be in deeper conversation with each other, if we can be in deeper relationship with each other, that's how we can find pathways to healing. Right. So Saturday is one example of that, where we're inviting community, trying to remove as many barriers as possible to come and be in relationship with each other so that we can have the kinds of conversations that allow us to think about where we are situated in time and space, such that we can create a better outcome for future generations and not be in an exploitive, extractive relationship with land, to not be in a transactional relationship with each other, but to be in relationships that are actually trying to seek out healing, seek out meaning, seek out love. And that's really what Janata's book was inviting us into that conversation. And for those folks who maybe don't have a great relationship with their grandmothers, I want to invite us to also share that the energy of what we're talking about, we're thinking about transcendental grandmothering. So that means to me that there are many revolutionaries who came before me, who I feel and have adopted in some ways as grandmothers. I think about Audre Lorde, I think about Toni Cade Bambara, I think about Alice Walker and so many others who I don't have a personal familiar relationship with them, but there's a way in which their work has grandmothered me. And I think about important people in our community, yourself included, Al, that are also mothering in their own way, and that doesn't have to be solely a gendered or familial relationship.
I love it. I'm Al McFarlane. You're listening to The Conversation with Al McFarlane. Right now we're talking to Signe Harriday and Amake Kubat, who are representing the phenomenal work occurring in our community over at the Pillsbury Theater, Pillsbury House in South Minneapolis, an important event coming up this weekend that you ought to be a part of, make it a priority. I want to take another minute and ask you, Signe, to talk about theater. Talk about the creative urge, why it's important. How important is it that we attune ourselves to something that really represents a pathway to understanding our divinity, the divinity in existence? I'll drop it there and see where you take it.
Wow. Well, as the daughter of a preacher, you are speaking to my spirit. Yeah, I do think that theater is a tool, to be quite honest with you, that does have the possibility of connecting us to our humanity and our divinity. I think that, the question that you're inviting is like, why theater? In 2023, when there are so many places and spaces for how we spend our time and our resources, why would theater be one of those places? And the answer I often give is twofold. One is the theater is one of the last cultural institutions that invites people who are not maybe from the same place, from the same perspective, to be inside of a ritual with one another. And that kind of cross-pollination, I think, is important not only to see our own divinity, but to see the divinity and humanity in others. And through storytelling, we actually are able to activate empathy in a very different way than when there's a screen between us. We are in a room, literally breathing together, having an experience that will never happen again, except for that moment. And I think that's the exercise that helps us to activate that empathy. And we need to exercise that muscle in order to be prepared. And the second part of why theater is imagination. So our ancestors believed that something could be better. They could see beyond what was right in front of them. Mm-hmm. They used their imagination to create different futures, different possibilities, and then activated towards making them realities. If you have the feeling that everything is not quite right now, and I hope that you do, you have to activate your imagination to dream a different alternative, to dream a world that we don't currently have right now. Mm-hmm. And imagination is the tool that gets us there, and theater activates the imagination.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. I'm looking at the comments, and my brother, Mike V, who always checks us out every day, says that, reference to you, Sister Amoki, he was under the impression that the grandmother was the highest ranking person in the family. Mm-hmm. The Black matriarch, he says, if you will, radically different from the white patriarchal social structure. Interesting, great observation, and it elevates to the proper place, the role, the presence, the throne of grandmothership in our community. TT says hello, and Talia Jones, thank you for tuning in and watching the program. If you are listening on the station, on KFAI, or on any of the social media platforms, I want to hear from you. Send us a note, log on, and put a note in the comments section. Let us know who you are, where you are, say hello, like TT did. TT, hello back to you, and thank you as well. So, I've been reading some work by Seba Azahir over at the Cultural Wellness Center. And he talks about the principle of and your comment about theater is what brought this to my mind, Signe, that an examination of an Africana way of knowing is the premise. How do we, as African people, go back to where we are, without confusion, addressing the what's the right word? The essential, the essence of existence itself. Mm-hmm. And theater is one of the plays, one of the ways, and as you describe theater, that allows us to interpret the process of regeneration, of creation itself, and that allows us to know that, that this life-forming and life-giving experience is eternal. It's been there, it will be there. And what is our relationship to it, and how do we express it in language, in words, and in activity that we organize in theater? How do we use it as a teaching tool? What do you think?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think, but we have to recognize that a tool only works when we use it. And so I think, if I can say another plug about the work that we're trying to do at Pillsbury House and Theater and have been doing, is to say that it's not a one and done. This is about creating the habit and the commitment of exercising this tool of imagination and this vehicle for creativity. And I think that it's also important, we are different than some other theaters in the Twin Cities because we're also based inside of a social service agency, Pillsbury United Communities. And so we are actually looking at the ways that art can be infused in all walks of life. We have an early education center, the oldest in the city of Minneapolis, the first licensed daycare and pre-K program, over 140 years old, almost as old as the city of Minneapolis. And I think why I like to tell that story is that we have to think about embedding art and creativity into the lives of our young people. For them, it's much easily accessible because I think the notions of play are welcomed in that environment. But we do need to cultivate it. We have a beautiful program for seniors that is a memoir writing class that has done writing, that has done a graphic novel, that is currently exploring memoir through movement. And so theater and artistry can actually live in a lot of different places. And we hope that when folks come out on Saturday, and we hope that you will join us on Saturday from 1 to 5 at Pillsbury House in South Minneapolis on 35th in Chicago, you will get the opportunity to engage in lots of different kinds of art forms. Million Artist Movement will be there. Quilting, you'll have the opportunity to work with your hands, working in a sitting circle, listening, telling stories. There's a sound bath of cultural affirmations from the community that has been created by our youth interns. There is roller skating and music. So things that also engage your artistry on multiple different levels. And so I think no matter what kind of artistry you've maybe been introduced to, we're hoping to be able to activate that part of you on Saturday if you come by.
I'm Al McFarlane. This is The Conversation with Al McFarlane. What a wonderful conversation with Signe Harriday and Sister Amake Kubat. So you've got your instructions. Show up this Saturday and be yourself, be your true self. That's what we're trying to do, is encourage us to show up as we are, as our best selves. And that way we imagine futures in which we win. And I say that to say this, Signe, winning for us may not be the same as winning for them. The winning we're looking for doesn't mean we have to desecrate any other human being or any other resource in creation. There's a different way to win. And our mission is to demonstrate, to reflect the power of winning that is restorative, that is regenerative, that heals. So there we go. Let me switch.
It's full of joy. Full of joy.
Yes.
Absolutely. Joy driven. Absolutely. And joy producing. Well, listen, we could go on for days on this, but I'm going to stop and pivot and bring my next guest in. Thank you both so very much. And we'll keep doing this, okay? I want to bring in my next guest. It's a project that does have the community abuzz. I mean, it's just kind of mind-blowing. So there's a book I read called The Samurai Project. I think that was the name of it, The Samurai Strategy or Samurai Solution. I read it 30 years ago. And the story was about some entrepreneurs who wanted to figure out how to elevate and to cultivate entrepreneurship or capital or development funds in Japan. And what they did is created a program, a project that captured the imagination of the people. And in doing so, they just attracted productivity in ways it had not done before. Well, I'm looking at what's happening over at Nexus right now, and the project is called the Open Road Fund. I'm pleased to have two of the principals in the Open Road Fund initiative. I have Duaba Unenra, you can correct me if I'm pronouncing the name incorrectly, Brother Duaba, and Lavasha Smith of the Open Road Fund. Here's what I understand. The Nexus organization was the recipient of a $50 million grant award from the Bush Foundation. The award was to address the question of wealth creation for the descendants of enslaved Africans in Minnesota, in South Dakota, and North Dakota. And the group at Nexus put great minds, young minds together in coming up with a strategy, a project, a process that would, with intention, invite people to think about, what do I need to do? What could I do? How could I move myself into a system of a process of self-sustaining capability? And so the word went out about a month ago that Nexus creates the Open Road Fund. The fund promises to grant about 800 people or so over a period of time, several years, grants of $50,000 per individual. There's a process for applying and a process for winning. We'll talk about that in a minute. But as I think about it, the more important thing to me, it's important, number one, to get the money into our community, but more important is to motivate the thinking, unlock the imagination, have people think about, how can I collaborate with my sister, my brother, my neighbor, another business, and what can we do together if we had this amount of capital? Or if I need to rest, what would happen if I had a year to think and rest? All these things are possible. Well, let me stop talking and have the experts talk about their vision, what they're doing. Brother Duaba and Sister Lavasha, welcome to the conversation.
Hey, thank you for having us.
First of all, correct me. Now, I've sort of given you my layman's understanding of what you're doing. Fill it in and make any corrections you need to do so that I'm not giving bad information to anybody.
There's no corrections to what you shared so far. Yeah, really appreciate how you framed it up, and also how Signe and Make also framed it up. Like, this project is fundamentally about invigorating Black imagination, creativity, and also cooperation in our communities again. We have the benefit as well of not doing this work alone. So it's like, yes, it's Lavasha and I, our sister Taiwan, our sister Danielle, sister comrades, I should say. And then there's also a larger community that guides and supports our work in the form of an advisory committee. And we've had the honor of doing this work, of dreaming what a process for redistributing wealth to Black community would be together. Sometimes
let me interrupt you. Let me interrupt you, Brother Duaba. And yeah. I'm interrupting you with a smile. And the smile is in my face and in my heart. And the smile comes from, I'm looking at you. I don't know how old you are. I'm saying 20 something. You might be a little older than that. You might be younger than that.
I'll take that.
Okay, well, here's the young cat talking about wealth creation in a way that we've not heard before in our community. And I'm thinking, what does his grandmama think about him now? He's talking about dispensing $50 million in our community in Minnesota. So that's just my aside, number one. I wanted to say it because that's the power that your energy and that your project is bringing. And that, my friend, is all about invigorating the imagination, the possibility. But go ahead. And you can respond to my adoration if you want to or not.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Part of why I'm engaged in this project is because my grandparents on both sides of my family grew up and came up in South Louisiana, like within a stone's throw of the plantations that they had been enslaved on. And in the case of my grandmother's family, because of the way that colonization and enslavement took place in Louisiana, it was French and Spanish primarily. Our ancestors were able to get access to the land that they had been enslaved on before the end of the Civil War. And what's interesting about that, beyond the fact that they had access to this land where they made a community, they started a town together, by the time I was born, most of that land had been bought out from under us, from under our entire family. And so over generations, I think we're talking about 200 years, the wealth that our family had literally generated collectively no longer existed. And so for me, it was important having that legacy to also support projects from folks that we're in community with, to not only rebuild wealth and reattain wealth, but also to defend and secure the wealth that they do have. We also have a very expansive idea of what wealth is. And just to share a little bit about that, for us, wealth is not something that is limited to material assets. It is a mindset, it's a state of relationship with one another, where we are no longer dependent on systems that benefit from predation and violence and theft from our communities. Is where we have a sense of social organization and community with one another, to where if we need something, we can get it from one another. And so, you know, the end result of the awards that we distribute to community, and I guess I should also say $50 million sounds like a lot, but across our 3 states, there's about 55,000 Black families, and we only have enough money to reach 800 of the 55,000 folks that are here. I'm sorry, I might even be, I might need to check my numbers on that too. It's a lot more than that. It's actually about 450,000 of us, I should say.
But maybe in 55,000 families.
Yeah. It's 450,000 of us.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's not a substantial enough amount of money to impact all of us, but it is enough money to substantially change the lives of 800 people in our community. And those folks will have the opportunity to open up pathways that none of us can foresee or imagine, because we're trusting this gift to them. And one of the hopes that we had in designing the program the way that it is, which if you don't know, Baba Al, is right now the applications are open. They close on July 28th, so this Friday at 11:59 p.m. So just before midnight. They've been open since Juneteenth of this year, so June 19th, 2023. And at this stage in the application process, which is open to Black folks who are descendants of Africans who were enslaved in the Americas, and that's anywhere in the Americas, North, South, Central, the Caribbean, and also folks who repatriated to Africa, so Liberia, Sierra Leone, and other places. For those of us who have that lineage, live in Minnesota and the Dakotas, this first part of the application process is registration. So you are signing up to join our selection process. Our selection process, in the interest of equity, operates on a random selection. So you enter your application, and we are going to review everyone's applications. Right now we have about, I want to say 5,900 applications.
Wow.
So we've reached 10% of the population.
Yeah.
And once we select the 100 awardees, and that includes individuals and groups of individual applicants, our next step is to support those folks in developing their wealth building plans. And we want to celebrate and support those folks. And we also want to lift their work up, because we know that no matter what happens, there will be some benefit that's extended to the rest of us. The grant opportunity is also open for the next 8 years. So if you are not selected this year, you will have an opportunity to apply again, and to take another shot at getting closer and closer to your plan and your vision for building wealth for yourself, your family, and your community.
Amazing, amazing, amazing. Lavasha, jump in here. So you're actually the program manager. A couple of questions I have, for example, if you would explain how people can either individually or in groups apply, and what's the difference, what's the reason, what's the why for that possibility. A question though, if a person's in a group, can that person also apply individually? Can a person apply more than one time, since there's a lottery impact? Or a person may have 4 or 5 different ideas, and I'd love to have this or have that or this or that. So tell me what the scope is and how do people address those questions?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I'll let Duaba speak to the group section of that, but what I'll speak to is the program is intentionally designed with community in mind. From the time that we started dreaming, when we first were told that we were stewards of the fund, all the way up until now, we've made sure that community was at the center of that. And so that looks like, our advisory committee, that looks like the community helping us to shape our definition of Black wealth, as well as our 5 Black wealth building themes, which are housing and shelter, education, health and well-being, ownership, and financial well-being as well. And so those 5 wealth building themes are all eligible uses for the fund. So as you mentioned, people might have, dreams and goals of owning a home as well as going back to school. We do ask that they focus on one of those wealth building themes. We also understand that there are steps to get into complete into one of those things. So for example, if you wanted to go back to school, you could use that money to go back to school, but what if you don't have transportation and you needed to buy a car? What if you needed to pay your rent because you're late on your rent because you need the housing to be able to do your homework? We wanted to make sure that this program wasn't, we weren't dictating what they could spend the money on, but to make it wide enough so that they can define what wealth is on their own terms. And then as far as the applications, so applicants can either apply as an individual or as a group. And I think another unique thing about our program is that the money is going directly back to individuals and not to nonprofits. And a lot of folks think that it's just a business ownership grant, and it's not that. It's much more than that. So you can apply as an individual or you can apply as a group, and I'll let Duaba talk about the group section.
Duaba, go ahead.
Yeah, so we've gotten a lot of questions from folks who are interested in applying as groups. So thank you for the opportunity to speak about it a little more. So to answer your first question, Baba Al, in this process, you have 1 shot per year to apply. So you can either apply as an individual or you can apply as a member of a group. If you have a tax entity, a LLC, a S Corp, C Corp, or whatever, we only accept applications from individual human beings, not tax entities on pieces of paper. So you don't get a second entry in the application process that way. You only get 1 shot. And so in terms of groups, with a group, you have the opportunity to apply with up to 5 people. That can be your family members, it can be friends, it can be a mix of those. It can be coworkers or colleagues from community that you have already started some form of project with, or folks who you share a common vision and have just lacked access to the capital resources that you need to start that project. And if you apply as a group, the way it works is you have a primary applicant. This is the person who starts the application process for all of the members of the group. Once they apply, they add on the folks that they want to work with as collaborators. Once your primary applicant submits their application, everyone in that group will be invited to join in on the application. And the way it works is if your group is selected, each member of your group, so if you have 5 people, each person gets $50,000, $250,000 total to pull towards a common project that would benefit all of you and your families and possibly your communities as well. In terms of how to respond to some of the questions, what we would love to see from folks who are applying as a group is a couple things. We like to see unity of vision. And so in the application, for those of y'all who haven't had a chance to check it out, you're able to designate what type of wealth building project you all want to do. So what we would like to see is folks have designated that they're going to work on the same type of wealth building project. And when you get into the details of it, of telling us about what you want to do to build wealth as a group, that's where you can start to tell us more about the different facets of what you want to do. So just as an example, an elder that I'm in community with is starting a wealth building project application with their family. And they all have different facets of a community center that they want to build out. One of them provides healing services. One of them grows food and provides access to food. And then my elder is a writer and an educator who I think you may actually know, Baba Al. And so they want to pool their resources and their vision and imagination, creativity, and love for community together to provide all of those services in one spot, a one-stop shop for community. So you can have a broad vision for how you want to use the funds. What we would love to know more about for those of you who are applying as a group is how does it all come together? And how does it empower you? How does it change conditions for you in terms of building wealth? How does it open up an opportunity for you and your group to do something that you wouldn't have been able to otherwise without access to a gift from the fund? The only final thing that I'll say is that this is not a lottery. So please don't treat it like that. Legally, we're not a lottery. You're not paying anything to participate in this. What this project is literally its intention is to jumpstart Black creativity and imagination around the ways that we want to cooperate with one another to build wealth. And so, we ask that folks, be thoughtful and not just for us, but for yourself, because even the way that we designed the project was we wanted something to where even if you weren't selected for an award, it would still catalyze a process for everyone in community to begin thinking about the ways that they wanted to build wealth and to move towards that.
Well, brother, that's exactly what I was saying. I think that is equally important, perhaps even more important than the 800 individual families. Two things are going to happen. One is that you're redefining a role for philanthropy in our community, a different model for engaging philanthropic assets to benefit individuals, families, communities around specific intentions of wealth building, wealth creation, and self-sufficiency. So you're changing the game in doing this, and that may have a multiplier effect among other philanthropic institutions or processes or systems. But equally important, as I said this earlier, you're unlocking the imagination. People say, let's get our heads together and hustle together. Let's see what we can do. And we may not be selected because there's only 100 this year and 100 next year, but we have a conversation that we had not had before because we've been visited with a possibility that didn't exist before. And I think that's the value. Lavasha, let me ask you and Duaba to go personal. I always like to ask people where they come from, who their parents are, whose shoulders are you standing on, and why is it that the Creator has placed you in this position to do this work this day? What do you think, Lavasha Smith?
Yeah. So my mom actually commented earlier. Her name is Silas, so she's on here watching. But I come from a long line of strong Black women, and that can mean different things for different people. But part of that is true. And then there's times, of course, where we don't want to be that strong Black woman, right? We want to have the space to rest and restore into parent, into mother. So a lot of the work for me, which is I always tell people, this work called me. I didn't choose it, right? So this is the first time I've been in a space, in an organization where I've been called to the work. And so this work is really important for me. And the thing that I think of when I think about the Open Road Fund is just like Black joy. Like the smiles, that we see on the youth, or like the laughs at the barbecue, like just Black joy, Black love, Black healing, us being in right relationship with each other, and that collaboration piece as well. And so that's kind of a little bit about me.
Native Minnesotan,
Yes.
Lavasha?
Yeah.
How many generations back in Minnesota is your family?
So I was born in Wisconsin, but I've been here since I was 3 years old. So Minnesota is what I know. My mom kind of moved around a little bit from Wisconsin. She's from California. My dad is also from Wisconsin as well, and his mother is from Michigan. So we have family from all over.
Duaba, tell me about your name.
Yeah, funny that you mentioned Seba Azahir. I got I got my name at the Cultural Wellness Center.
Uh-huh.
And my name speaks to my purpose in community. Duaba is literally, Dua is pray and Ba is the soul. So my name is I praise the soul. And I chose that name because that is the role that I wanted to play in community, to reaffirm the inner light and genius and creativity of people around me, so that we would all basically do what we came into the world to do. So that's a little bit about my name.
Well, great information. I want to speak on behalf of the elders to you, Duaba, and to you, Lavasha, in particular. And I can tell you that I'm speaking both as an elder, and I'm speaking on behalf of the ancestors. We're looking at you, and we are proud, and we are motivated, and we are confident that the future that lies ahead is one that is driven by joy, that produces joy, produces productivity, produces power, and demonstrates the proper use of power in and among human beings all over the world. And your mission, and you're on it, is to establish a different understanding that harkens back to the original. And there we go back to the teachings of Seba Azahir. How do we find an analysis that is based on some principles of balance and the principle of regeneration? So there we go. Listen, I could go on and on. I want to thank you both for being here. And I'm expecting that we'll keep talking about the fruit of this labor over a long, long period of time. Thank you so very, very much. I'm Al McFarlane. This is The Conversation with Al McFarlane. Thanks to my guests from the Open Road Project at Nexus. And if you haven't signed up or gotten to it yet, part of today's program was let you know that this program has a deadline, I think, of the 28th at midnight. So you've got time to think about what you want to do and how you could benefit from being an applicant, trying to be one of the ones selected, if not this year, next year, or next year, to be part of this Open Road initiative. I want to bring in my last guest for today, and that's a friend who is equally impressive. And Brother Patrice Bailey is the Assistant Commissioner for the Department of Agriculture at the state of Minnesota. And Brother Patrice, how you doing, man? Good to see you.
I'm doing good. You look well.
I feel well. You look well as well, and everybody on radio can see how good we look. It just takes reaching the mind's eye, and that's what we do, is we speak to the mind's eye. Signe and I were talking about you before we went on air, and so she said, I'm going to hang around because I want to talk to him about our relationship with the land. So before we get done, I'm going to bring Signe back into this program, this conversation. But Brother Patrice Bailey, Assistant Commissioner of Agriculture, so good to see you. Tell us about what you're doing over at Agriculture. What's your role? What's your mission? What's your portfolio? And explain, the leadership that you are providing and developing as a leader in state government.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. So my name is Patrice Bailey. I serve as Assistant Commissioner here at the Minnesota Department of Agriculture. And my areas of responsibility is meat and dairy inspection, meat and food and feed safety, and ag marketing and development, which includes everything from Minnesota grown all the way to renewable energy, as well as all the grants for MDA. So a lot of things that we're doing right now is implementation, from the last session that we just came out of. We're just in the process of actually implementing quite a few things right now. So I'm just really excited about some of the things that we have, and really being able to talk to people about what agriculture is and not where it was, and that's really important, especially as our baby boomers continue to retire. want to continue to shed a light on those that are looking for an entry point into agriculture.
So what is agriculture? What was it? What is it now? And what's it
Well,
going to be?
I have to say honestly that, you know, we in terms of the industry doesn't do a good job in defining what agriculture is, because agriculture is food. It's everything that you eat. Where it's the gas that you put in your car is 10% of ethanol that goes into your car into the blend. Ethanol comes from corn, so there's lots of agriculture that's built into where that supply chain and where your food comes from. We just have to make sure that when we're talking to our kids that, you know, I always believe that kids can't be what they don't see. And if they don't see us, it's really important that they understand that agriculture is all around them. And you know, it's not just at the grocery store. It's actually everything that comes from the field to transportation to distribution, and then it goes to the store. So we have lots of educating to do, but I think that the most important thing about agriculture is allowing youth to dream about what the possibilities are in terms of the endless possibilities, and sort of reaffirming the fact that George Washington Carver is in everything that I do on a daily basis. So those are some of the things that we continue to look at.
Let me take a minute and have you give some background, Brother Patrice, Commissioner Patrice Bailey. How did you come to this work? How did you move into this field of agriculture? What's your own personal training?
My personal story is that I grew up in Harlem. I grew up 5 blocks from the Apollo, for those who know about New York City. I didn't want to get into agriculture. That wasn't something that was top of mind. I was in my senior year of high school. My mom said, "What are you going to do? You got 6 months left." I said, "Well, I'm going to go to law school." And she said, "There's too many lawyers. Why don't you find a profession that you can feed yourself in any part of the world that you may find yourself?" And I said, "Well, what is that?" And she said, "Agriculture." And immediately I had this frown on my face, and I said, "Well, I don't want to be a farmer." And she said, "It's so much bigger than that." So I couldn't see what that vision was until I went to Prairie View A&M and University in Texas. And then I was able to actually see agriculture in a different stratosphere. Fast forward to where we are today. I am the first assistant commissioner of color since 1885. And so, you know, there's a lot of responsibility with that in terms of leaving a legacy for those that are coming behind us to be able to do amazing things.
You're hiring people right now, right? I think you've got a job we're going to talk about real quickly.
Yeah, real quick. So we have an emerging farmer office that we received a year and a half ago, and now we're looking for a director. And that director will be the first director in this role in the country for the Department of Agriculture. The application process opened July 22nd, and it will close on August 14th of 2023. So we are looking for the best of the best, energetic. We're looking for people that want to be world changers. So we're just looking for, you know, people from all over the state, all over the region. But we really do need to be able to have the best person in this role in order to show that agriculture does have an entry point, and this emerging farmer office would actually be able to help farmers that are not able to advocate for themselves.
Let me bring my friend Signe Harriday back in. Signe, give you a chance to talk to the commissioner here. We had a great pre-show conversation about the land. What question would you put to him or comment?
I mean, it's less of a question and it's a bit more of just excitement and wondering when Patrice is going to make his way to the fields at Root Spring. He has an open standing invitation to come be on the land with us. But it's okay. It's okay.
I digress, right?
It's actually more to actually uplift what Mr. Patrice is here talking about, the emerging farmer, because I think the emerging farmer looks a lot more like us on the call than maybe the farming industry used to look like. And I think that's really important for us to try to find ways to connect with our young people around how to grow food. And here at Pillsbury United Communities, we do have a food program. But I guess the question is really, when are we going to get together so that we can scheme to find pathways to more?
And I'm gonna let you guys do that offline. I just wanted you to be
We got that.
Here.
I'm gonna reach out.
We're at the end of the program. What a wonderful program. I want to invite you, if you've got a topic you want to discuss or a guest you want us to invite, text conversation to 929-566-6470. We want to hear from you. The number again, 929-566-6470. Text the word conversation. I'm Al McFarlane. We'll see you next time.